feeds on krill, plankton and shoals of fish, so it doesn't hunt humans. But the blue shark here is actually one of the most, it's actually more inquisitive shark. It's not dangerous at all. It's really more like a great big puppy. But of course, one shark with probably the worst reputation of all is this one, the oceanic white-tip. And the oceanic white-tip is a cousin of the great white shark, and of course they are usually the first one to see in a sinking ship or a plane crash at sea. That's mainly down to the fact that this is a shark of the open ocean where there is very little food and it has to suss out anything in its environment to see if it's going to be edible. Of course, my favourite shark here, the tiger shark. And tiger sharks to me are probably the most incredible shark on the planet, and they are probably the most generalist feeders of all sharks. I mean, they don't just eat fish, they also eat bits of carrion that are floating around in the water, but they also feed on seabirds, mammals from dolphins to dugongs, other sharks, and even incredibly sea turtles, and their teeth are actually shaped like can openers to scissor through the shell of a turtle. And they serve an important role in the ecosystem because by feeding on turtles, they make sure to keep their population in balance so they don't overgraze on the seagrass, which is very important to the ecosystem. But of course, the shark down here is probably the one with the worst reputation of all, the great whites. And great white sharks are probably the most feared animal on the planet, and that's mainly down to the fact that the movie Jaws cemented the image of the mindless man-eating monster in the public imagination. But also, if a shark attacks someone, it makes the front line of the newspapers. When great whites, the only time they attack is if they mistake humans, like surfers, for seals, or if they're trying to suss out whether we're good to eat or not. Of course, while only about 8 to 10 people are killed each year by sharks, so about 10 million of them are killed each year by man. And these are the reasons why, because we are destroying their habitat, we are overfishing, taking vast amounts of their prey out of the water, and quite often sharks are caught in nets, but the worst of all is this shark finning. Of course, sharks are quite often pulled from the sea just so their fins can be hacked off and then used in a dish like in this. It's a dish called shark fin soup, and it's an Asian delicacy that is particularly common at weddings and especially in China, India, Vietnam and Taiwan, North Korea and parts of the Middle East. And it's also seen as a status symbol, and the fins add no taste at all. They're all purely for texture. And quite often when sharks are pulled from the sea, their fins are just hacked off and then they're just dumped back in the sea. And sharks are apex predators. They keep the ocean food chain in balance. So if they're wiped out, then the whole food chain of the sea will collapse. And to me, that is one of the most, probably more frightening than any spider, is a world without an apex predator where everything in the food chain collapses. I'll be moving on to Asia now. The first animal of Asia that I'm going to show you that is at risk from humans is the largest of the big cats and one of my all-time favourite animals, the tiger. Tigers are the largest of the cat family, and when I say the largest, a fully grown male can be more than 3 metres long and weigh 4 times my body weight. They also have canine teeth as long as my middle finger and can bite with a strength of over £1,000. Of course, tigers are found throughout Asia, but of course, also, the white tiger here is a rare variant of the tigers, and they are very rarely recorded in the wild these days. But tigers are now in terrible trouble all over Asia. In fact, because they are hunted by no species except for man, and over the last 100 years, the tiger population has been decimated from 100,000 to as few as 3,200 left in the wild, which has put them on the endangered species list. And of course, one of the main reasons for why they've been so persecuted by humans is just down to what makes them such a wonderful animal. And they've been hunted for their coat because it's so beautiful, but also because human beings want to take on their powers, and so tigers are also hunted for their bones and body parts to be used for traditional Chinese medicines, which, and there is no scientific proof that it works, but people still want to buy them. And it's now those reasons that mean that tigers are dying out all over Asia. In fact, of all the tigers, only 3 species, Caspian, Balinese and Javan tigers, have already gone extinct because of us. But there is hope. In the early 2000s, there was a BBC wildlife team led by the late Dr. Alan Rabinovitz, and he led an expedition to the Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan, where they actually discovered a tiger corridor population across the Himalayas right into Thailand. Found tigers in Bhutan, and they were able to link those populations together, and so that gave hope for the tiger in the wild. And the next animal is another one of our closest relatives, and it's the old man of the forest, the orangutan. Orangutans are the largest tree-dwelling animal on the planet, and they are found in Southeast Asia, on the islands of Borneo and Sumatra, and they are, like the chimpanzee and the gorilla, they are closely related to us, but they are also, unlike chimps, they are herbivores, meaning they feed on leaves and fruit, and of course, unfortunately, they are becoming critically endangered and are at risk of extinction because of human beings. And the main reason for that is habitat loss, because we are cutting down the forests that they rely on to make way for plantations, and it's all for one thing, oil palm. And palm oil is used in many products throughout the world. Like, even if you go down to the supermarket today, you'll find palm oil in everything from food to hair products and shower stuff. Almost everything has palm oil in it, but also they are hunted to be taken for their young to be used, to be sold through the pet trade, to be sold as pets to disreputable zoos, for people to have their photos taken with, or even worse, to disreputable cruel circuses. And of course, if we don't do something about this now, then the old man of the forest will disappear forever and will be nothing more than a legend, which to me is absolutely terrifying. But there are ways you can help protect these animals. One of the main things you can do is buy products that have sustainable palm oil, that are environmentally friendly and that come from palm oil plantations that have not destroyed the habitat and support the local economy. But also with tourism, like going to visit orangutans in the wild is a good way to help protect them. Next, I'm going to show you, not wildlife, but it's actually the poachers and anti-poaching squads of also Asia. Because I'll start off with the poachers, because poachers, as many of you know, are people who go out hunting animals like rhinos and elephants, gorillas and chimps and tigers. There's for money. Now, while a lot of them are just armed gangs looking for money, many poachers, I understand, a lot of them are just desperate people, and a lot of them, especially in Africa, they come from communities riddled with poverty, crime and disease, and they don't have any money, and they have families to support. And when you have this opportunity to provide for your family and to earn enough to keep you going, you take it. But I just personally think there are better ways of going about it. And of course, that's what the anti-poaching squads are for. And of course, the anti-poaching squads are people who are doing everything they can to protect the wildlife from Africa and Asia. Because right now, it is basically war, so they have to be one step ahead of the poachers. And it's also a very dangerous job, as poachers are heavily armed, well organised, and very, very dangerous. As a lot of rangers and anti-poaching squad members lose their lives in Africa and Asia. But of course, a friend of mine, his son has actually recently joined the anti-poaching squads in the Kruger National Park of South Africa, and he has been working with them for the past year and a half to protect the wildlife that we share the planet with. And of course, if we can't find a way to coexist with the natural world and protect it, then we will basically be looking at a mass extinction event that hasn't been seen since the time of the dinosaurs. Because here are some examples of animals that went extinct in the wild because of us humans. The first one is probably the most well known. It's the dodo. Now, the dodo was a flightless bird that lived on the island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean, where it was endemic. So it was found there and nowhere else on Earth, and it's almost certainly the first creature that human beings actually exterminated in historic times. And the dodo was actually closely related to the pigeon, and it's believed that the dodo made a pigeon-like call, sort of goo-goo, goo-goo, which gave the bird its name. And it was also believed to be a herbivore, so it fed on fruit and nuts. And of course, unfortunately in the 1600s, when Dutch sailors arrived on the island, the dodos had never seen a human being before, and so they weren't actually stupid, they were actually trusting. They'd never seen human beings before, and they had no natural predators, so they were more trusting than stupid. And unfortunately, the sailors also brought with them rats, dogs, cats, foxes, badgers, and weasels. And of course, the dodos were flightless, they had no natural predators, and they nested on the ground. Of course, at first, sailors hunted them for food, but also the rats and the weasels plundered their nests and ate their eggs. But of course, then the dodo adults were also eaten by the predators, and in less than 100 years after their discovery, the dodo just completely disappeared. These two here are the mammoth and the mastodon. They are ancient relatives of modern-day elephants. They were around during the Ice Ages, and of course no one is quite certain how they went extinct, but one theory suggests it was a combination of climate change and human hunting, because at the end of the Ice Age, about 10,000 years ago, when the ice melted, when the ice disappeared, a lot of their habitat disappeared, and unfortunately we didn't give the elephants and the mammoth and mastodon enough time to adapt, because we early Homo sapiens, we hunted